I think one of the biggest ones was my marriage and subsequent divorce. Eh, when you go into a relationship and you think this is my dream and I am going to be so happy for the rest of my life and unicorns and butterflies are everywhere, and it wasn't. And he's a wonderful guy, sweet spirit, um, and just very different from me. And so I thought for a long time it'd be okay. I can be the breadwinner. I can do this, and I didn't realize how tired I would get.
Mhm.
And there became a time when I was just absolutely tired. And we have a son who is amazing, and he just turned 24, and he's, been totally loved his whole life. But when he was 8 years old, I thought I can't keep doing this. I was still speaking, but I was also a pharmaceutical sales rep because it gave me security and stability. And I knew that a paycheck was coming in, and I knew I had health insurance, all the adult things that you worry about. And I had to leave for 8 days to go do a new tour. And I loved it. And when I came home, I was met at the door with my son saying, Dad bought a motorcycle while you were gone. And I knew that meant that I bought a motorcycle while I was gone. And something snapped.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Solo Success Stories. And I am so excited to be speaking to my friend, fellow professional speaker, Harriet Turk. Now, I met Harriet several years ago now, but it was in the speaking world. It's funny, she lives here in Memphis with me, but it was somebody in California, our friend Norm Hull, who said we should meet. And we went to lunch and we've been friends ever since. And I am super excited, super honored actually to be able to sit down with Harriet and to share her story. She is a super strong, super amazing speaker and woman and proud Memphian like me. And I'm super excited to get into her story. So Harriet, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And yes, isn't it weird that you live in the same city with people, but you never meet, paths never cross, and somebody from California uh, tells us we should meet.
Super
So
appreciative though.
truly, absolutely. Well, I am from Memphis. I went to Delta State University undergrad, and then I went to University of Alabama for graduate school. Majored both in criminal justice. Started off as a probation officer, which led me into alcohol and drug prevention programs, and became a state youth coordinator for the governor's office. Put on conferences, hired speakers, never could find women. So after a while, when they kept sending me out to speak to people and places and clubs and organizations, I thought maybe I should try it. And I did from a different perspective, because at that time, everybody was um, recovering addicts, and I've never used an illegal drug in my life, never had a DUI, all those kind of things that were really big in the late 80s and 90s. And then from there, I got married and we moved to Chicago. And so I became a consultant for youth programs and failing youth programs who needed to be resurrected. And then I also like security. So I became a flight attendant because why not? And, then I did that for a little bit, but then my speaking business truly took off. So I've been doing that. And then 2008, didn't feel very comfortable leaving my son. And so I became a pharmaceutical sales rep, and that was fabulous financially, but I really didn't feel like I was being fulfilled. And so I quit that and went back in full time. And I don't know, I love speaking to people about remaining successful or just remaining on your path, even when times are tough, so.
Wow, what a journey. What a career.
I know. And my mother so many times would say, I just don't understand why you can't be content. You and your father, you just can't be content. And, I don't know. I've always been interested in all kinds of things. So
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. I love the diverse background that you have, and I know and I know I've actually witnessed you bring all of that into your speaking. I actually, yeah, in your last speech, when I was able to watch it, I was able to witness how all of those things came together. And I love it when a person can bring their whole life into their current career and what they're doing now
Yeah.
and the insight that it gives you. Yeah.
And I think Memphis also adds a huge element because so many people go, "Oh, you're from Tennessee, Nashville." Nope, you know. And it's like I don't know. I think we're different people in Memphis, and that brings in a whole different perspective, you know. And I don't know. That's who I am, you know.
No, I would completely agree. And I love it. And I really am grateful for this last opportunity when I got to see you speak and really got to know you better as a person and as a speaker. It was amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing. And so now I'm super excited to get into your story. So, Harriet, in this program, I have what I call the So It's Success system. It is my belief that absolutely anyone, if they can learn to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices, they can have what I call so it's success. And that's success no matter what happens in life. And Harriet, from what I know of your story, I know you are a so it's success woman. So let's get into it. Let's first talk about overcoming obstacles. Talk about some of the obstacles you had to overcome on your journey to get to where you are today.
I think one of the biggest ones was my marriage and subsequent divorce. You know, when you go into a relationship and you think this is my dream and I am going to be so happy for the rest of my life and unicorns and butterflies are everywhere, you know, and it wasn't. And he's a wonderful guy, sweet spirit, and just very different from me. And so I thought for a long time it'd be okay. You know, I can be the breadwinner. I can do this, you know, and I didn't realize how tired I would get. And there became a time when I was just absolutely tired. And we have a son who is amazing and he just turned 24 and he's, you know, been totally loved his whole life. But when he was 8 years old, I thought I can't keep doing this. I was still speaking, but I was also a pharmaceutical sales rep because it gave me security and stability. And I knew that a paycheck was coming in and I knew I had health insurance, you know, all the adult things that you worry about. And I had to leave for 8 days to go do a new tour. And I loved it. And when I came home, I was met at the door with my son saying, Dad bought a motorcycle while you were gone. And I knew that meant that I bought a motorcycle while I was gone. And something snapped. And I said, I can't do this anymore. And while that sounds very great and you walk on, no, I was devastated. And it took everything within my being to continue to get in front of people and talk about how to have a successful life, how to have a perfect action plan when my action plan was not working. And so I did a little twist where I started talking about how to maintain success professionally when your life is falling apart personally. And the more that I did that, the more that people related to it because I could just tell them, you know, life is great and some days suck, you know. So how do we keep going? And I think the more that I did that, I was talking to myself the whole time I was on stage, and it helped transform people's lives as well as mine. Yeah. So that I would say just that, because that was a long journey, you know, because you want so badly to make stuff work and you teach people how to have action plans and sometimes you don't get them.
I can relate to that very deeply. I mean, I went through a divorce as well, and I remember also thinking, "This is it. Whew, now I can check that off the list and live happily ever after." And I see you're a fighter. I know you're a fighter, just like I am a fighter. So you fight to make it work, and then I felt you in that breaking point moment. But I also love your authenticity and how you used what you had and what you were going through. You weren't fake about it. You were very real about it, and you were able to help other people and help yourself at the same time. I
Yeah.
think that's beautiful.
Well, I remember sitting in a parking lot in a rental car, having to really pump myself up to get out of the car because all I wanted to do was just go somewhere and where nobody could find me. And I felt like a sham. You know, everybody's talking about imposter syndrome now. Well, I went through it for years and years because people are like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. You help people so much. And I was like, well, then why can't I help myself? And it wasn't that I couldn't help myself. It was just that I was making bad choices, or people would go, gosh, you're such a survivor. And after a while, that's not a good compliment.
I know.
You know? It's really not. But people do that as a compliment, but they don't know that you're about to crumble in the process. So
No,
yeah.
I deeply appreciate you sharing that. And I can truly relate to it because I've got the same thing over the years. I'm like, no, I'm not strong.
Yeah.
But let me tell
No,
you
you're
how to
not.
be strong. But
Exactly.
but the beautiful thing is, and I know looking on the other side of it is like, how much you've learned and grown from that situation, and how much of a better speaker and consultant and all
Absolutely.
the things that you do because you went through that challenging time and had to balance not being an imposter, right? Because I understand that too. It's like I'm trying to be real, I'm trying to be authentic. I am going to be real and I'm going to be authentic, but I'm breaking, but I can still help you. Um,
Yeah. Go
yeah.
ahead.
No, I want you to. I was
Well,
just
I was going to say that, I used to get really upset when I would hear people say, like, for example, I was at church one time, and this visiting minister was there, and he was doing this whole thing, and he was like, and I just was laying on the bathroom floor crying and weeping because I couldn't get out of the funk. And all of a sudden I heard this voice, and God was telling me what to do. And whether you believe in God or not, there's always some voice, or the universe is telling you what to do or whatever. And I went up to him afterwards and I said, how come you? And he goes, excuse me? I said, why did God talk to you? He didn't talk to me. I'm sitting here begging for help, and I don't get any help, and I think I had gotten to the point where I was mad at everybody who felt like they knew what they were supposed to do, and they were content and full. And I'm just sitting there searching, but I'm fabulous in other people's lives, and so, and I think that's one thing that's really hard. And I said for a long time that I was going to create a um, keynote speech, how to be fabulous in other people's lives and yours,
and yours.
because it was that and mine that I didn't. But I was always, and this, in this world, people are so pompous and like, I'm the number one speaker in the world. And I always want to go, where was the contest? Because I wasn't invited, and I got to the point where I was like, I just want people to know that I have not climbed Mount Everest. I have never been in a fire. I've not been Miss America, but I've got a lot of crap that's happened in my life. And if I share that, people can relate to having to sell china to make your house payment. People can relate to things like that more so than how cool it is if someone has overcome an obstacle by going to Mount Everest. And I'm not putting that down at all, because that is cool. But 89-90% of us don't do those kind of things. We wonder, how are we going to do our house payment, and
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why you are so relatable, and that specific obstacle that you shared is definitely one that's so many people
yeah.
can relate to, and how it affected your life in so many different ways. Well, let's go to the second part of So It's Success System, which is eliminating excuses. And so you had that obstacle and others.
Yeah.
Talk about how you have eliminated excuses to get to where you are today.
Well, I'll say that there have been many times when I've not eliminated excuses. um, and I had a magazine article that I was reading one time, and it said, you know what, if you need to lay in bed and eat Ruffles for 3 days and not wash your hair and just watch TV, you do that. But then on the fourth day, you get up and you wash your hair and you go about your day. And I have learned that a lot of times I have to do that. I go. And then I start going, well, I haven't been home in a while, so I'm not, well, I can't do, yeah, because it's like I need that break. And so what I learned was I can eliminate a lot of excuses if I give myself a break in the meantime, because the excuses come when I feel overwhelmed. A lot of the excuses come when I don't know what to do, or maybe I'm not necessarily ashamed, but I feel like somebody else can't relate to me, so I'll make excuses for things. Or it just, I've learned so much that if I need a break, that's not an excuse. That's a real valid reason. But if I don't get up and wash my hair, and if I don't get up and get back into my life, then that's when a lot of excuses come in, and it's real easy to go down that.
Right, right. I like that, Harriet, and I think a lot of people don't give themselves grace. So a break, give
Yeah.
yourself grace because and understand that life is hard, life happens. You need to forgive yourself and understand not something wrong with you. It may not be something that you've done, and to give yourself a break. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that. We all need to be reminded of that sometime, especially women who are really driven, right? Or people who
Yeah,
are
or like
driven.
if you're gonna, if I stayed in bed, then my son can't learn the value of commitment to your life, or just commitment to a sport or whatever it is. So I want to be a role model, and at the same time, I want him to know that just because you dream something, it's not going to automatically happen. And which is why I get real upset when people go, "If you dream it, you can do it." No, you can't. Um, I You can do a lot of things, and you should always try, but there comes a time when you have to know what you are good at and what you need to concentrate on. And I wanted to be like so many of my friends and be good in what they were good in. And so I started feeling less than. And then I realized, no, two of my best friends since fifth grade, they were like, "Are you kidding? We've always wanted to be you." And I'm like, what? And that's just it. We all look at everybody else and think everybody else has it together. So,
Right. I
yeah.
think that's a good point too about perspective and understanding that we are special, we are unique, we were created with our own gifts and our own talents, and to hone in on those and
Mhm.
stop comparing ourselves to other people because it is when usually that is what we find out is they thought your life was great and your life is perfect. I wanted yours.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, theirs is hard and tough and you wanted theirs. And so for me, it's a point of appreciating what you have
Mhm.
and the experiences that you have, good and bad, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like COVID, um, I lost my business in 48 hours, and it was posed to be the best year that I'd had in like five to 10 years. Well, my husband had just gone on medical leave. So I didn't care about COVID. I cared about what the heck am I going to do to bring income in? And I ended up having to deliver groceries. I worked for Shipped, gig stuff. And I think that was great. And Shipped, Instacart, that kind of stuff. It got us through. But when you go from getting standing ovations before 1,000 people, and then other people going, "Oh, Harriet, you pick out the best produce. We're so glad you're our shopper." You're kind of like, what has happened to me? Well, I had to keep going when it would have been so much easier to go, well, what am I going to do? You make a way so that your life can still have purpose. And I
I
learned
like
so much with doing Ship too. I learned so much about people and how people look down on people and how people help people. I mean, there are customers who would say, "How can I help you? Are you okay?" And I'm thinking, yes, we're okay. And then I realized, there's a lot of people that aren't. So I don't know. It's just, you just do what you have to do.
I think that's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that too, because COVID changed a lot of people's lives in a lot of ways, right? And
Oh gosh.
I'm like you in that I lost six figures in a day,
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
because all the contracts went away. And I was like you in that that was going to be an incredible year for me too. I was super excited about it. But it's also something beautiful about being humbled,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Oh,
two
absolutely.
couple things I heard in that. One, and you saying, I just got to do what I got to do. And sometimes people aren't willing to do what they got to do to
Yeah.
make it and to get to the other side of it. But you did what you had to do. And the other side of it is the humility that comes from it. And this business that we're in is it's like that, right? COVID
Absolutely.
or not.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I've experienced too is being really humble and understanding that you just don't know what's going to happen. You do your best, but sometimes life happens and you have to adjust. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
The
But
buzzword from COVID was pivot. You got to pivot. And I hate that word. I hate that word now. I don't want
I
to
know.
pivot.
I know. So you know what? So that takes us to the third part. So a success system, which is calculating choices. So even during that time, you made a calculated choice. You was like, I'm gonna do something else. I'm gonna figure this out. Talk about some other calculated choices you've made on your journey.
um, this one sounds kind of silly, but going out with my husband, that was a very calculated choice. We both grew up in Memphis. We went to rival high schools. We were very different people. We had tons of friends. We worked together at Dillard's, but I don't remember him. He doesn't understand that because he said he was the hot guy in men's. But yeah, he was very, very different than me. And so when he called me and started trying to, ask me out and stuff, and I started asking several friends, and they were like, I don't know, he's very different from you. And no. And all of a sudden I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go, because I had decided I was never dating again, and I went, and I kept trying very hard to not like him, and I kept trying. And all of a sudden I was like, why are you fighting this? You are laughing, sincerely laughing for the first time in years. And a lot of people try to talk me out of dating him and definitely marrying him, but we work. And if I had listened to everybody else, then who knows where I'd be right now. So, a lot of times when you're asking people for help, that's great, but then you weed out what is not for you, and then you make this decision yourself. And if you screw it up, oh well,
So what, right?
That's right. So what?
So what I heard in that, Harriet, and I feel that deeply as well, and that you're protecting yourself. You were protecting your heart. You went in with the intentions like, I'm not gonna like him, I'm not gonna, but then you opened yourself up to try it.
Yeah.
And then I think that's a big deal that we have to embrace, is that, and whether it's in a relationship, in a career, in a job, and whatever aspects of our lives, is sometimes we're scared
Oh
because of
yeah.
past experiences. We've been hurt before, so like, I'm not trying that anymore. And then we miss out because we don't try. And then sometimes we try and we get hurt again. It does, we know that
Yeah.
happens. But it's a beautiful thing when you can try and allow yourself to try and give it a chance, and you realize a positive outcome from it. So I kudos to you for that. And I think somebody watching this is gonna resonate with them, because a lot of times we're scared to try again. We're scared to try again. So
Absolutely. And sometimes you just got to put yourself out there, even if you don't want to. I mean, with friends. I mean, um, part of a Facebook group of women, and I was going to be in this girl's town, and I thought, you know what? I always like the comments that she makes. I'm just going to reach out to her and see if she wants to meet. And she said that she made it be like she was going to have a meeting in 45 minutes. So we only could have like 30 minutes when I was there. We ended up being there for 4 hours, and you just never know. So sometimes you got to put yourself out there. And then there's other times when I put myself out there that it's not been successful at all. But, if you don't put yourself out there, you stay so closed and you don't learn anything.
right. And just don't be afraid to fail. That's the thing. So, right, put yourself out there, and sometimes it will hurt. And so for me, it's like, just go into it knowing that you could possibly fail. You could possibly get hurt, but it
Absolutely.
could also possibly be something beautiful, right? So I,
Absolutely.
I appreciate you saying that, Harriet. So I think about you and your life and your journey and the things that you've shared and the things that I know that we haven't had time to talk about. You know how to overcome obstacles, eliminate excuses, and calculate choices. You are definitely a so success woman and an inspiration to me and so many other women I know, and young people and men too, especially. So you are so a success woman. But Harry, now that you've had all these different jobs, all these different careers, actually, and you've been through so much in your life, how do you personally define success?
I used to think of it as status, and I just wanted status, and I wanted to have a important title or people to look at me as a success. And now I look at success as, am I comfortable in what I'm doing? And, it, and everybody wants to have more money. I mean, I don't understand when people go, oh, money's not important. No, it is too. It is, but it's not the reason why I do what I do. And so success is just, am I comfortable with what I'm doing? And then if I'm not, or if my life really is messed up, then I gotta do something to change it. And now I will say that there have been many times, like last week, I was having a conversation with my husband, who's very black and white and very task oriented and stuff. And I was just going through, venting. And he said, I think you need to write a book called Since COVID, I'm Not Okay. And it's because I keep going, well, back here, and it's like, that is never going to be there again. So I have to change and look at my business and everything else differently, because, things just constantly happen. And no, I don't want to be traveling at the level I was before COVID. And I've kind of forgot that part. And you have to have people in your circle who can help you get back in alignment of who you are and what is successful. And it's hard, I think, when we do what we do, because people do look up to us. And then if we don't share the times when we don't feel great about ourselves or what is successful, in our lives, then it just gets all messed up, because people want success in terms of, it's hard to, I'm showing you, they want to be elevated, but sometimes you're not elevated, but you have to be comfortable knowing it's going to come. It's going to come again. But what are you going to do so you can get there again?
That's why I like having these conversations, is just because it's about being so open and honest about it and understanding. And also, as far as that question with defining success, as I love to hear about the evolution of what success is, because I remember when my definition of success was, I want to make twice my age in my income.
Yeah.
I want to have a big house. It's like how that stuff that's not what matters now. And so I love hearing the answers, like your answer of what success is for you. But you also gave some advice in there. And so my last question for you, Harriet, you've given a lot of advice and given a lot of nuggets and shared a lot of wisdom throughout this entire interview. But what's one last piece of advice you would give someone watching this who wants to be successful, however they define success, but they run into life, they have challenges? What's one piece of advice you would give?
Stay in bed for 3 days and eat Ruffles and just veg out, and then get up and wash your hair, and then get up and get back into your life. And make lists, what is it that you want to do and how will you get there? And what it is you want to do, write that in pen. And then how are you going to get there? Write that in pencil and have more room on your side of the paper for when you have to go to plan B, C, D, E, so that you won't feel like a failure. And just remember that you're valuable and that you have something to give. And so just keep going, just keep trying, and have times when you take a break.
Give yourself a break, then get up. I think that was excellent, Harriet. That was such good advice. And I'm going to take that advice. I'm going to take that advice. Harriet, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your wisdom and for sharing. I know this isn't the easiest time, even right now in your life, and I appreciate you giving me this time and sharing all the advice that you've given. And I appreciate you being my friend and a speaking mentor for me. It means the world to me.
Thanks, Norm. So
shout out to Norm. Thank you, Harriet. Have a wonderful day.
You too. See ya.